ท่านวิทยากรอีกท่านหนึ่งนะครับ
สักครู่นะคะท่านศาสตราจารย์ดร.โจนาธาน พีเชฟเฟิร์ดนะคะท่านยังร่วมเป็นผู้ร่วมเสวนานะคะกับพวกเรานะคะในเซสชันนี้นะคะระหว่างนี้นะคะถ้าทางฟลอร์ทั้งออนไซต์นะคะในห้องประชุมนะคะรวมถึงคำถามจากออนไลน์นะคะทางบ้านนะคะใครมีคำถามก็ฝากคำถามทิ้งไว้ได้นะคะเดี๋ยวทางคณะทำงานเนี่ยจะได้รวบรวมคำถามเพื่อให้ท่านวิทยากรนะคะได้ร่วมกันตอบคำถามให้พวกเรานะคะค่ะขอเสียงปรบมือต้อนรับท่านวิทยากรกิตติมศักดิ์ของพวกเราทั้ง3ท่านอีกครั้งหนึ่งค่ะ
Good morning, distinguished guests and participants, both on site and another 400 people online. Welcome to these inspirational sessions. I'm sure that everyone, when we listen to Professor Shepherd's success, there's a lot of data, a lot of scientific approach. But when we doing our work from data to the success end, it's not only scientific, but there are so many mental dimensions, spiritual dimensions, social dimensions. So on this session, we will talk about that. What is behind the success story? I'm Dr. Kamnoan. I'm very honored to be co-moderators. And my colleague, Dr. Vivat, would you please introduce yourselves?
Yes. Actually, those moderators, what you call the announcers already described about who I am and what is my background. So I would like just to introduce my co-moderator, Dr. Kamnoan Ung Chusak. He is very well known epidemiologist in this country. If you are asking people who are the best epidemiologists in Thailand, if you want the top 5, he will be one of the top 5. And this meeting today, this session, is actually originally his idea. So I fully endorse it because, Professor, we learn a lot in the literature about whatever model, whatever successful model, but we don't know how painful the people who develop model face during the development of the model. So we are lucky that today we are going to listen to the success of Cardiff model from the originator of this very famous model. First of all, I would like to congratulate Professor for receiving this Prince Maiton Award for this year. And you may not know how tough to become an awardee because you have to pass through a very, very rigorous stage of consideration within the foundation of the Prince Macedon Award. And so receiving these awards mean that your innovation has to be so successful, save millions of lives. And I would like to just raise the first question. By the way, what we are doing in this session is that both of us, moderators, will ask questions to the professor in the beginning, and then we will ask our audience also to ask questions. For our online audience, you just type a question, and then probably our announcers will be able to convey this question to me in writing so that I can ask question to the professor. We know that this is a very successful program, based on the presentation, and also I also searched from literature, from internet. But then, why do you need to invent this? Because I mean, we want to learn before the beginning of this model, what was the interventions, or what were interventions exist during that phase and before the implementation. Why do you need to do this? Because you already have some intervention already in place, and it is not effective, or no intervention at all. This is my first question. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there were a few things that were really inspiring for me. The first one was that when I was a trainee maxillofacial surgeon in the north part of the UK, I remember that we had a lot of injured patients from the same pub, from the same nightclub. And I thought, this is interesting that the violence is concentrated in these few alcohol outlets. So that was the first thing. Then the second thing was, I remember in the operating room, during a strike of the miners, the coal miners in Yorkshire, in the north of England, and he just said during the operating list, he said, "Oh, we always see more people injured in violence when there is a miners' strike." And I thought, that's an interesting observation. And so when I became an associate professor in the University of Bristol, and that was in the year 1983, I thought, this is a good topic for a PhD. And I did not have a PhD at that time. And so I thought that the medical aspects of violence, they had not been studied before. There was a great hole in the literature, a big gap in knowledge. And I thought that would be a very profitable, or might be a profitable topic for a PhD. And so it proved. So that was the second inspiration. But then I think the third one, which I'd like to draw attention to, was finding in my PhD that the police didn't know about all this serious violence that was happening. And it was a real shock. It hit me emotionally. Here's the principal agency responsible for crime prevention, the police, and they don't know about all this serious violence. So that was a real shock, an emotional impact on me. And so it meant that I walked along to the law department, got in touch with the criminologist there, and then we applied for a grant, successfully applied for a research grant to study why it was that the police don't know about all this serious violence. So I think those three things were the inspiration for me to get going and study this. So that was, of course, before the Cardiff model was ever thought of.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So it seems that you start with the purpose of doing your PhD. And let me ask you, many of us also do the same thing. We want to do something, we want publication, we want degree. But in your case, it's not just stop when you got the PhD or you got the grant, but you're still continuing doing this. So what are the internal drive that make you pursuing this idea? And I'm sure that you have to convince yourself that this is a good thing. I want to do this, and I will never give up. So is there anything inside that drives you?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that two things. I think as a maxillofacial surgeon, I realized that my specialty, my surgical specialty, was full of people being injured in violence. So every week there was 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more people injured in violence. So this kind of topped up my appreciation that violence was an issue. But what happened was that after I finished my PhD, I was an associate professor in the University of Bristol, and I became the head of departments in the University of Cardiff. And at that time, my whole priority was to set up a new department. We had to appoint physicians, surgeons, radiologists, and so I did nothing about this for about 3 or 4 years while I was setting up a new department. And then I thought, well, I can't leave this finding alone. I can't just let that be published in an academic journal, the finding that the police don't know about a lot of violence. And so I thought, let's do something about this. Let's take the next step. And that next step was a straightforward, a simple step. It was to call a meeting of the police chief in Cardiff, someone in the city government, and actually a psychiatrist, and it's a liaison psychiatrist. And we met, just 4 or 5 of us, and I said, do you think we could try to prevent violence more effectively by using emergency department data and not just rely on police data? And so it took off from there. And we had very informal meetings, you know, in the back of big rooms like this, in the back of the council chamber, and slowly this became formalised, and Cardiff's Violence Prevention Board was developed. But yeah, to answer the question, it was a feeling here that I couldn't let this alone. You know, and what is the point of being a practitioner if you don't put the research into practice? You know, if I was a professor of physics or a professor of French, for example, I would be happy with publications in journals. But I'm a practitioner, so I want to practice. I want to put the research into practice. So that was a driver for me.
Very, very clear, and I think very impressive. I saw many people who are working every day with some problems in front of them, but they are just treating something in front of them, but they don't think about how to prevent such thing. For example, the doctor treating patient with diabetes, with hypertension, they continue to treat every day, starting from very early morning and then left home very tired some. And not many of them have but trying to do something to prevent such condition. And we would like to inspire people that even though you are sitting, you are a dentist, right? You are a dentist or a medical doctor?
I'm a maxillofacial surgeon.
Which is
it's face and jaws.
Okay. So it's not a dentist, but like okay. I thought you were a dentist because I want you to check my teeth. Yeah. Okay. It will be very prestigious to be checked by international, the people receiving Prince Medal Award to check my teeth. Anyway, how many cities are there in your country? There may be so many. But then how can you scale up from one city to different city? Or how many percent of the city in implementing your program right now in your country?
Yeah. Well, just to start with, my first degree was a Bachelor of Dental Surgery.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And that's where I started. But then maxillofacial surgery is a specialty, 1 foot in dentistry, 1 foot in surgery. But I last did a filling to sort your teeth out in 1977, many years ago. So don't trust me with your teeth.
Okay. So the question is, how many cities are there, and then all of them are implementing your program, or just some cities? And then if from 1 to 10 to 20, what are the mechanisms that scaling up from 1 to many?
Yeah, well, there are many cities in the UK that do this, including in Scotland, in Edinburgh and Glasgow and Dundee, for example. and almost throughout Wales, but there are some that don't do it. And it's the same phenomenon as with any innovation, that there are early adopters, there are enthusiasts who adopt something very soon, straight away, and then the vast number of people then follow slowly, but there are always people who are laggards, we call them, people who they think it wasn't invented here, so I'm not going to implement this. It was invented in Cardiff, or is implemented in Bangkok, but not other cities. So I don't want to have something, I don't want to be implementing something that wasn't invented in my own city. So there's that kind of antagonism sometimes. But I think it's the nature of campaigning and public health that we have to keep going. And it's the same in the United States. There are some cities that are doing this, many which aren't, and the same in Australia. So it's the same phenomenon. And I think it helps, though, if the professional body, like the Emergency Physicians Association, takes this on, and especially if government takes it on.
Yeah.
Okay, so but then you let it flow by nature, or you have some interventions for scaling up?
Yeah, so certainly some interventions for scaling up. So the first one was to adapt the software used in emergency departments, to develop software which included those items that I mentioned just now. So it's was the injury produced by violence or an accident? Where did the violence happen? Precisely, using a free text field. What was the weapon that was used? How many assailants, how many attackers were there, and what was the relationship between the attacker and the injured person? And so to develop that software, and that was done nationally across the National Health Service in the UK, and that was first implemented in 2014. So that was the first one. Then the second event happened when you'll have heard of Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, now not in power anymore because of the naughty things he did. But in his question time in London, when he was the London mayor, someone asked him, Mr. Mayor, why aren't we doing what they do in Cardiff and collecting information in emergency departments and using that information to prevent violence? And so he then got his colleagues to apply for funding from the UK government, and that resulted in the whole of London, all 29 emergency departments, collecting the data and using it to identify where the violence was happening. So that was a second scale-up breakthrough. And then I think the third one is something that's happening just recently, where the governments have funded several meetings across the country to promote this. So taxpayers' money used to ensure that this is happening everywhere.
Yeah. Professor Shepherd.
By the way, I saw the message that the translation from Thai to English is not working well. Please kindly check the network system so that we have audience from many country in ASEAN who are also joining this conference online. So please make sure that the translation AI work. Thank you.
Okay, Professor Shepherd, we always face this situation. We are happy with our duty. For example, in your case, you are maxillofacial, so you should be very happy with doing surgery and then finish. But you go beyond that, and we use the term out of comfort zone. You have to doing some kind of activity that beyond your normal activity. You have to go to advocate the idea with the police, with the politician, and with other people. So is this by your nature, or you have to train yourself that if I want to do this, I have to increase my skill on advocacies or communication?
Yeah, it's a good question too. I think being confident is important, and to just like jumping into a swimming pool. I have to go to the police and talk to them, or go to public health officials and talk to them, and not to think, oh, I've got to go on a 3-year course in order to learn how to do it. And there's an example which gave me confidence, and we haven't got a glass here, but imagine a beer glass. So we discovered that glasses were being used as weapons, and then we discovered which kind of glass was used as a weapon, and it was the straight-sided beer glass that holds a pint of beer. And then we went to a materials laboratory and looked at the impact resistance, how much energy was needed to break the glass. And then we did a randomized trial of toughened glass in pubs and found that toughened glass, tempered glass, was much safer. And then we went to an advertising agency to try to scale up, and they came up with this scheme, the face of Wales, or the face of Thailand, because that was the area which was being scarred and damaged with glasses in violence. So I found myself speaking to people in the glass industry, and one of the advantages there was that there was a glass manufacturer who was making toughened glass, tempered glass, and they suddenly realized from the research, from our research, that they had a selling point, that their glasses were safer than non-toughened glasses, so that they could then market the toughened glass based on safety, which they had not thought of doing before. And so that process taught me about the physics of tempered glass and how it breaks and impact resistance and all that. I didn't need a PhD in materials science to do that. It was just knowledge about glasses. And I think learning a little bit about a new field enables one to communicate effectively. I don't need a PhD. I don't need to be an engineer to talk about, or a materials scientist to talk about toughened glass in pubs. Yeah.
Okay. So it means that exposure, when you expose to something, you learn new, and that exposure leads you to another experience, one by one, right?
Yes, and it's the same process as in surgery, learning about a new technique. So to go back to the dentistry point, the introduction and development of dental implants, made of titanium, that it means that surgeons and dentists have to go and learn a new technique and learn about the material of titanium. So it's the same process, only for prevention purposes and not for treatment.
I see.
Yeah.
Dr. Vivat, before you ask the next question, let me continue this one because I'm very curious. People say that when you want to do something, you have to dream at the end, and you know the step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In your case, is that the step that you lay down and you follow, or is by natural, accidental, go from one event to another one, and then go to the end of the story?
Yeah. At the beginning, I had no idea at all about what the development was going to be.
Okay.
So it's slowly, step by step, and then acting on each step at a time. But the Cardiff model was not known as the Cardiff model until about 2005, 2006. So it was only then that things had crystallized, so we knew that we'd come up with a new program.
Okay.
But it's definitely step by step, and I think that's one of the huge attractions about research, that you discover something and then what's the next step, and what's the next step, and making sure that you follow each step and don't just copy what anybody else is doing.
Yeah, please, Dr. Vivat.
Yes, I have a feeling that you just mentioned something that if not developed by yourself or by your location, you don't want to accept it. Generally, many people think that way, right? You just mentioned that if you are not the one who developed it, you feel reluctant to use it. That is right? Correct or not correct?
That's a problem.
Okay.
That can be a problem. Some people don't mind.
Okay.
So in the United States, for example, they're very good at copying things.
Yeah.
They're very, very happy to take on, the culture means.
Okay.
They're very happy to take on something new. But at home in the UK, it's called the not invented here syndrome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be a
But
problem.
you know that because you just mentioned that you call this a Cardiff model many years after the initial implementation, right? If I were you, I may not call it Cardiff model because people outside Cardiff may not want to implement it.
Yeah.
Do you feel that this is a barrier? Or, I understand there are so many barriers, but can you just list some barriers that you found, unified, so that we can learn from you? And how did you address such barrier?
Yeah, there have been many barriers over the years. The first one was in Cardiff, where the police, they just did not believe that they didn't know where violence was happening. And it took a separate further study of comparing emergency department data and police data to convince them that actually we don't know where all the hotspots are. We don't know where violence is happening. But once they were convinced, they've been on board ever since. And I think that police and surgery have a lot in common. Now, if you forgive the pun, we both do operations and we both do investigations. So that helped. So that was a way through that barrier. Another barrier was the software in because the software that emergency departments use can be provided by different providers. And some of the providers, they say, if you want to change just one item in that software, that's going to cost you $10,000 just in your hospital. So that's a barrier, and that was solved actually at government level by insisting that this particularly free text field, the free text field was introduced into the software that emergency departments use. That was another barrier. Now, in the United States, one of the barriers is that there seems to be resistance to form a city violence prevention board. People in the States, and I'm generalizing now because there are exceptions, they're good at collecting the data, they're good at analyzing the data, finding out where the hotspots are, but not so good at setting up a violence prevention board to convert that information into practical prevention. So that those are the barriers that first come to mind. And I think also emergency physicians and surgeons, they don't think about prevention very much. You know, they love having lots of emergencies to deal with in the emergency room. So it's changing the culture a bit to say prevention's better than cure.
Yeah. Okay. To link with this, who exactly is the, more or less, what I can say, commander of this model It's a physician, it's a health sector, or it's a police sector?
Who leads it, you mean?
Yeah, that is.
Okay. Well, it varies, and it's about where there's a champion. So in the UK, the champions come from different sectors. So I remember vividly an ophthalmologist, an eye surgeon in the north of England. He was a champion in his city because of the eye injuries that were caused by glass in particular. Other places it could be emergency department specialists, senior emergency department specialists. But now in the UK, I would say that it's a mixture of emergency department specialists and the police. And especially as the Home Office, the government department responsible for the police, advocates this. And the Police Chiefs Council, the police chiefs from all over the UK, they meet and they have an association.
Okay, so it's more or less like a committee or something?
Yes.
Okay. Just one small question. All the data that you share have nothing to link directly with the persons, the patients or what you call the person causing this violence. And do you need permission from them, whatever? That's what I mean.
Yeah, yes, the Cardiff model is not about bringing more people to justice. It's not about identifying the assailants. The Cardiff model doesn't do that. I mean, that's an important role for the police, to catch the criminals. Of course it is. But the Cardiff model doesn't depend on bringing more people before the courts and sending them to prison.
Yeah.
But the deterrent effect of policing is a public health. It's powerful from a public health point of view. I mean, just like when we're driving along a motorway, a freeway, and if there's a police car there, we keep to the speed limit. The deterrence of having a police presence at a hotspot or outside a bar or a nightclub, that's powerful. It's a public health. In fact, one of the papers that I wrote, which was published in The Lancet in about 2003, I think, was deterrence as a public health intervention.
Yeah. We have some more couple questions for you, and then we will open the floor. One question, if you allow me to ask, that people say that failure is the mother of success. So in your case, is there any failure or some barrier, some very upset that you face, and how you overcome that?
Yeah, lots of failures.
Okay.
Lots of failures. I was very disappointed in the early days when the police said to me in Cardiff, we need good relationships with the alcohol trade.
Relationship with alcohol trading. Okay.
Yeah. We need to have good relationships with the people that run the bars.
Okay.
We don't want to be, because it's lawful to sell alcohol.
Yeah.
It's lawful.
Uh-huh.
And of course the police are there to make sure that the law is followed.
Okay.
And so the data, from our perspective, a lot of it was saying, it's that nightclub there, it's that licensed premise, it's that pub, it's that tavern. And the police said, steady on, we need to work with these people.
Okay.
They're working lawfully, so we can't come down on them unless they break the law. So, and I was disappointed about that. But of course, that's a fair viewpoint.
Yeah.
That's a valid viewpoint. Then I think another failure has been, it feels to me, that we didn't scale up as fast as I'd hoped. Because I thought, well, we've got this new way of preventing violence. Why isn't everybody doing it?
Uh-huh.
But of course, they didn't all think the same way as me.
Okay.
So, my job is an emergency department physician. I need to be dealing with emergencies. Mm-hmm. What's all this prevention? Yeah,
I see.
There was that. failure. And one other thing I was a bit disappointed about was how difficult it was to get the software changed. And it took a meeting with the Prime Minister, who was Theresa May at that time, and a Prime Minister's summit just to get the software developed properly. And I thought, well, it's disappointing that we can't do that without the Prime Minister's approval or power behind it. So I think I tended to be rather impatient.
Okay.
I wasn't patient enough.
Okay.
You've got to just keep going. It's campaigning. Keep going, keep going.
Keep going, keep going.
And one of the inspirations actually for me was in engineering.
Okay.
So looking at the Industrial Revolution, there was a man called Richard Trevithick who invented the first powered vehicle on a railway line. In 1804, he developed a steam locomotive. And he tried to get this scaled up in the UK. And after about 5 years, he gave up because he wasn't getting the scale up. And it took another engineer, George Stephenson and Robert Stephenson,
yes.
to build the rocket, the steam engine, in 1825, so 20 years later. And so I thought from that, the lesson for me, Shepherd, is keep going.
Okay.
You've got to keep going, you know.
Okay.
So that's why I chaired Cardiff's Violence Prevention Board for 2 decades, for 20 years, to try to ensure that the message got across. And of course, it still hasn't got across everywhere. But that was a lesson from engineering and the Industrial Revolution for me.
Okay, so never give up. Keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going, yeah.
Professor, you are still practicing maxillofacial surgery? I want to link with my next question is that how can you keep yourself with your life balance, with your professional practice, and then this type of social intervention, and your family, and your social life?
Yeah. Well, I think that as an academic, you know, I've been a professor, of course.
Okay, you teach students also, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But I mean, my focus has been on the clinical practice and the prevention and the research, and not so much on the teaching. Not so much. I mean, obviously, you have to give lectures to the undergraduates and seminars and all that. But as an academic, I had 6 sessions a week practicing, and then 4 sessions a week doing research and policy.
Your hand is not shaking, no?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. So in the same way that a professor of orthopedics would have a research group developing a new hip prosthesis and spending days of the week doing that, my research is about violence prevention. And then the work-life balance, I've got a fantastic wife who's here in Bangkok now on the ladies program.
Just one, right?
Just one, just one. So we have 4 children. She's looked after the children comprehensively over the years, and she hasn't had a job, outside the home. So that's worked well. But I think all of us have to develop our own modus operandi, our own way of doing things, and so yeah, it's worked well, I would say. But I remember asking a criminologist at Cambridge. I said to him, he's called David Farrington. He's a famous criminologist at Cambridge University. And I said to him, now, David, I've got time for 1 criminology conference a year, not more. Which one should I target? And he said, I recommend that you present at the American Criminology Society. And so I did that every year for 25 years.
Okay.
Just one conference
Wow.
each year. So I think that targeting our own activity is important. You know, we can, if we want to, go to a conference every month. But why?
Like him.
Okay.
Okay, but before you ask further, I would like to request our
Let's open the
audience-
floor.
Yes.
Please.
To just use microphone and asking question. And this question will not limited
Yeah.
to our, question and answer right now, but also link with the morning presentation as well. Yeah, please go ahead. But please introduce yourself and then asking question. Thank you.
Good morning, Professor. My name is Dr. Nopon Tatirangsi. I am the director of Songkhla Ratchanakarin Psychiatric Hospital. And I would like to say thank you to your presentation that inspired me to do something in the future for let my city safer from the past. My question is about the model, the Cardiff model. If I want to use the Cardiff model in my city, do I need to ask for permission or ask for the license to use in my city?
Yeah. No, you don't need to ask permission.
Okay.
Just do it.
Oh, just do it. Okay.
Yeah,
And about what about the toolkits and the software that I need to do in
You want
my
to
hotel?
learn, right? You want
yeah,
to,
yeah.
yeah.
Never ask for permission. Just ask for forgiveness.
Oh, forgive.
Never ask for permission. Just ask for forgiveness.
Okay.
And you'll be surprised how infrequently you need to ask for forgiveness. You go for it. Just if you want to set up a violence prevention board in your city, go to the police chief, head of public health, the chief of the emergency department, and say, "Can we meet, please,
Okay.
next Thursday week at 2:00?" And then start the conversation.
Oh,
I
okay.
see.
Thank you. And the second question is, do I need to use the name Cardiff model in Songkhla city, something like that, or just I can create something new name such as the Songkhla model to prevent violence?
Yeah, I think it's useful because there's been quite a lot written now about the Cardiff model. It's a way of accessing the literature and accessing the toolkits, for example, that the CDC have published. But it's really important doing this to be prepared to adapt the model to your circumstances. So you may find, for example, that the violence takes place in unexpected places, in shopping malls or in hotels or in sports facilities, for example. So you then need to adapt the model to suit the data. Look at the data. What is it telling us? Who do I need to collaborate with? So that's happened all around the world, actually. In Australia, the focus has been on alcohol-related violence. In the United States, is firearm violence. So I think one of the questions actually is, well, what else would you call it? What other name would you give it? And that's been, in the United Kingdom, in England, this is sometimes known as ISTV, Information Sharing to Tackle Violence, as a name. But sharing information doesn't prevent violence. You can share all the information you like, but unless you've got a mechanism for translating that data into prevention, you're not going to win. So an advantage with using the label, the Cardiff model, is that at the centre of the Cardiff model, there is a city violence prevention board. Whereas if you just use ISTV, you don't have that.
Okay. So you don't need to write for permission, but you can write to ask some suggestion from Dr. Shepherd.
Okay, thank you.
Write some email to you.
May suggest that you can use Songkhla model. And then you put some sort of asterisk, say that adapt from.
And then from Cardiff
from
model.
Cardiff model.
Oh.
He will be happy
Okay.
because in principle, he wants people to be safe from violence.
Okay.
And if you can reduce violence, he will be more than happy. This is what I feel.
Yeah.
That correct or not correct?
Yeah. It's a powerful motive
Okay.
to try to make your city safer.
Okay.
And it also will widen your horizons as well. Are you forgive me, are you a physician or?
I'm a psychiatrist.
You're a psychiatrist? Okay, so your practice will be the centre of your life. But with what I found was that developing the prevention, all of a sudden, you've got a contribution for your whole city. Yeah. And you're going to meet the police chief, you're going to meet the mayor, and over the course of a long career, you know, you're a psychiatrist now, and you'll be a psychiatrist for 2, 3, 4 decades. And you need variety. You know, doing the same thing is like a treadmill. Same thing, same day, every week. And so doing this adds another dimension, a much wider dimension, and it widens your horizons as well about what you can contribute, especially to your city.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Next question. Thank you very much. Actually, if you want to use like a Songkhla model, be careful that Narathiwat may don't want to copy you. Yeah, but then you use some more generic one that with using Cardiff principle, it will be more chance to scale up in your local areas. Not only in Songkhla province, but some nearby province. Yeah.
Okay.
But this is what the principle we learned from professors about how reluctant people to copy or to implement some program which not created by themselves. Yeah, but anyway, if it's really good, then just give credit to the original, persons or original locations.
Yeah.
For the real implement, for people can so that people can understand when they search from literature about the exact principle that create this or for this initiation of this approach. Next question, please. Okay.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Thavisap Silapapasiri. I'm a medical epidemiologist. My question relating to sharing data when we have different sources of information. Like you mentioned that we have information regarding violence in health sector, police sector, and sometimes here in Thailand we are facing with the reliability of the data and the sensitivity of the data. For example, when the police may not believe the data from health sector, or like they are confident in their own, and sometimes like this data may interfere with the credibility of the authority. So in your experience, how we deal with this different source of information and make that data to be utilized in order to prevent violence? Because like sometimes when we sharing this data, people may not want to say this is our own problem, or this is may have some difficulty in terms of convincing people to tackle or to prevent data. So I would like to get your suggestion or experience when we try to make the utilization of data for prevent of violence, how we deal with the authority and convince them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think there are two issues there. There is the ethics of sharing data, and there was legislation in the UK about this. In the 1998 Crime and Disorder Act, it set in statute, in law, that information sharing for the purpose of preventing crime was legitimate. The second thing to say is that, excuse me, the second thing to say is that the data that's shared in the Cardiff model is all anonymised data. No personal information is shared. No addresses, email addresses, telephone numbers, etc. And over 20 years, 25 years now, there's not been one case where somebody's complained about inappropriate use of the data. So that's reassuring. Now, the second issue that you raise is how to deal with difficulties that arise with other authorities. And one of the benefits of having a violence prevention board in a city is that you can talk about these things. You can talk about the issues as they arise. So you'll be next to a police chief or a city government official, and you can talk about these issues and find a way through the difficulties. And that's part of the accountability that I talked about, the accountability for prevention that arises. If you think of the police chief as, oh, he or she is over there somewhere and he's going to object, you'll have trouble. But if you get together with him or her every 6 weeks or 2 months to talk about these issues, or one of his representatives, you'll get through that, through debate.
Yeah, okay. So we will finish by another 5 minutes. So please, any question from the floor or from the online? Please, yes.
Okay, my name is Supasek Virojanapha. You met me. I escort you this morning. I have a big question. Does Cardiff model, how does it work with the domestic violence? Because I found that most of the data that we gather may be from the hotspot that may be in the community but outside of the living place. And I see the reduction in homicide, something like that, but some just domestic violence, can it help, and why, and how, something like that? Okay.
Sorry, I didn't understand that completely.
ถ้าภาษาไทยคือมันช่วยลดความรุนแรงที่เกิดขึ้นในครัวเรือนได้ไหมครับประมาณนั้นนะครับเพราะว่าเหมือนกระบวนการมันลดเหมือนเจอฮอตสปอตอยู่ด้านนอกอยู่ในชุมชนอะไรอย่างเงี้ยครับแต่ว่าแล้วถ้าการความรุนแรงที่เกิดขึ้นภายในครัวเรือนอะไรเงี้ยจะช่วยสามารถยังไงได้บ้าง
Okay. I think he asked about when you have violence in community, you dealing with one way, but when it happens domestic inside the family, that is more difficult and more sensitive. You have any suggestion on?
Yeah. Thank you. It's different. Violence outside the home, I think, is easier, but the information that's collected in the emergency department identifies people who are injured in domestic violence, people who are injured in their own homes, and the same applies to children as well. But then that means that the hospital is in a position to work with those people to make sure that the risk of violence is reduced, so it won't happen again, or it reduces the chances or the risk of it happening again. So one of the ways, of course the information is there for the hospital. Think of it as information which is similar to clinical information about a patient with their illness or their injuries. So this becomes part of the treatment plan for the patient to say, now, have you reported this to the police? Would you like us to report to the police on your behalf? But obviously not to make that compulsory at all. It's up to the patient whether they want that information shared. But then to direct the patient One example would be the multi-agency risk assessment conferences. They're called MARACs. So rather like a conference to reduce child abuse, child injury, then encourage the patient, they're largely women but not exclusively, to take part in a conference with social workers and the police, for example, to say, how can we help you to reduce the risk of this happening again, in the same way that child safeguarding happens. So that becomes the responsibility of the hospital, and that information, that personal information, isn't shared with anybody else, isn't shared with the police or the city government. That's part of the care package for that particular patient.
Yeah, okay. Dr. Shepherd, I'm afraid that we are running out of time, but this is a very, very interesting and useful. So if you have one final recommendation or take-home message, what would you like to give to us?
I think it's the question there from the psychiatrist colleague, actually, that it's take the first step.
Okay.
It's like blowing up a balloon. The first puff, you get it going, and then the next step will follow. Call the first meeting, even if it's with 4 people. Just do it. Or go to meet the chief of the emergency department in your hospital, and get the data collection started.
Yeah.
Small beginnings. Don't be too ambitious. Small beginnings and step by step.
Okay.
Take the first step.
Okay, Dr. Vivat, then please
I would
conclude.
like to just end this session, and thank you very much for your insight and your description, explanation to us. I hope that this session will inspire audience on not just to face the problem, but also try best to prevent the problems that we are facing in our everyday life. There are a few questions from online audience, but then I already asked some of these questions during the interview. However, I feel that there may be some questions left that the next session can answer to this in some degree. But then I would like to request professors that the next session, even though it will be in Thai, that you try to listen to the translation and then give us some final advice for today, some last advice based on those discussions by 5 speakers in the next session. Okay, so thank you very much for your kind discussion for this session, and thank the audience for listening to us and ask questions to Professor. So thank you very much. This session is now closed. Thank you.
Thank you very much again for sharing your valuable experience, and it inspired us very much and benefiting the health of people in Thailand.
ค่ะต้องกราบขอบพระคุณนะคะท่านวิทยากรทั้ง3ท่านเป็นอย่างสูงเลยนะคะที่ได้มาสร้างแรงบันดาลใจนะคะให้กับผู้ปฏิบัติงานทั้งในหลายภาคส่วนนะคะที่จะได้ทำงานกันต่อไปนะคะ